All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on protecting your ideas. It's all about taking a really deep dive into intellectual property and NDAs to help you as a nonprofit make sure that nobody else takes your work, but also make sure that you have a competitive advantage going forward. My name is Dr. Anthony Giannoumis, and I'm proud to be here on behalf of Zero Project's Scaling Solutions program. And I want to thank the sponsors and the founders of this program, the Essel Foundation, the Fundación Descúbreme, ATOS, GIZ, part of the German government, Enable India, and of course, my company, Inclusive Creation. So let's take a really deep dive right now. So number one thing we need to think about when we're talking about NDAs is confidentiality in any sort of partnerships that you want to establish. And this is important no matter the kind of partnership that you might want to have. At the beginning, it can always feel really fun and there's a lot of camaraderie and everybody's vibing, and that's great. But if you're not protecting your assets, if you're not protecting the things in your company that are confidential, then there's always a chance that if those relationships sour, things can go really badly for you. So establishing confidentiality when we're talking about partnerships is all about making sure that that information remains under your control. And confidentiality can mean a whole bunch of different things. It could just be about your business model. It could be about your ideas. It could be about your clients and your customers that you're working with. It can take a number of different forms. So when you're working in partnerships, it's really important right off the bat to think about what sort of knowledge, what sort of information, what sort of ideas do you have in your company that you may not want to make publicly available. And I would always think of it in those terms. So now if you're maybe working with technology developers, let's say you've come up with a brilliant, innovative idea for an application or a website or any sort of piece of technology, and you want to work with an external firm, someone who's going to do the coding or do the manufacturing or any sort of work for your company that might involve the proprietary technology that you've created, you're going to want to have a non-disclosure agreement or a confidentiality agreement to ensure that your designs, your intellectual property, the code doesn't just get dispersed anywhere they could want to. And again, it's important to think about these things up front before you enter into those partnerships. And those partnerships can take many levels of formality. Sometimes you just need an agreement to set up a partnership because you want to work on something together, and there isn't anything specifically confidential that either of you will be working on, and that's fine. It's still important to have some sort of agreement in place to just broker or moderate or find a place of agreement for all the things that you might be working on. And there's a ton of tools out there. PandaDoc and DocuSign are just a couple of examples, but these are excellent tools to get you started into thinking about how you can approach partnerships and confidentiality in partnerships. Now, when you're working on a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA, there are a few key clauses that are really, really important for you to think about. And those clauses are things like confidential information. What do you and your company consider confidential information? And again, this could take a lot of different forms. It could be the code behind your software or your service. It could be client lists, so who you've done business with or who you want to do business with, the contact information for the people that you want to work with, things like that could all fall under confidential information. You also want to set a scope. So any partnership is going to have a defined scope. Maybe you're working on a project, again, a collaborative project to create an app. The scope of the work might be that application and only that application. So then the only confidential information you're going to be disclosing to your partner might be the application's code or any of the data that's part of that application. So giving it a very clear scope, giving it some boundaries so that you and your partner understand this is what we are working on. And then the other part to consider in terms of clause is the duration. So how long do you want this non-disclosure agreement to be good for? So usually you might want to put a specific date that it is ending, that partnership is ending. So it might be in 1 year, it might be in 3 years or 5 years, and then get a renewal. So if you need at that time to go back to your partner and say, hey, we want to continue working together, but the nature of our partnership might have changed a little bit, or we just want to renew it to extend it. You want to make sure you have a specific clause that talks about that, specifically about how the renewal process works, whether it's just an email or whether it's something more than that, whether there needs to be another document that's been signed. Another great tool for this is called HelloSign. So you can Google for that and check that out. It's really, really helpful. Now, it might sound like you're going overboard, especially if you're at a new company, you're just created an innovation and you're not sure how you're going to approach it or how you're going to develop it. And that's fine. You may not need something super formal around your non-disclosure agreement. Maybe you just want something very simple and very basic. And what I often use is what's called a spirit of cooperation agreement. It's kind of like less formal, less legalistic than an NDA, but it still covers a lot of the ground of what an NDA would cover, but it creates a little bit less formality, and that makes it a little bit easier for the parties to enter into. Now, one thing to really consider in levels of formality is if you are working with confidential information, again, whether that's data that you've gotten from an application, whether that's the application source code or client lists or anything else, if you have all that information, you want it to remain confidential, you're going to need something that's a little bit more legalistic because you want that to be the final boundary for when things might go wrong. And a lot of companies that you might be working with might have their own versions of these documents. So you're going to have to come to some sort of agreement on the nature of that non-disclosure agreement. And that's a negotiation. You might have to come to them and say, here's a first draft. Let us know what you think. You come back, you make the changes to that draft. One way or the other, if you're working with information that could be very risky if it got out, if it got outside of your control, then you're going to want to have a lawyer or a legal scholar or someone with a legal background taking a look at that agreement and making sure in your jurisdiction and the area that you live with, it's pretty well locked in. Because if it's not for whatever reason, and your partner does disclose some confidential information, you might not have any recourse if that document hasn't been drafted with the legal context kind of taking into account. But just something else to consider while you're working with these sort of non-disclosure agreements. Now, what are the advantages? It seems like it's a lot of effort, a lot of hassle. What are the advantages? Well, when it comes to non-disclosure agreements, if you're using them in the initial stages of your work, it can be a huge advantage because it provides some security to potential investors, to potential supporters, that the intellectual property, the other work that you've already done in this project remains under your control. That's what it all comes down to. And that can give you a real competitive advantage when it comes to furthering your work, when it comes to actually moving yourselves into the market. Things like product designs are especially important here because the design of your product may be so unique that it needs some sort of protection. Otherwise, someone else could just copy it and then they would have a replica of what you're doing. Again, software code is really important in this regard because it should remain under your control. Now, there's a whole separate argument to be made about open source software code. And I am a big proponent of open source software code. And if your company relies on the uniqueness of your software code and your company's viability, its economic sustainability relies on that, you might want to pump the brakes and just think, what parts of your code would you want to make open source and what parts do you want to remain part of your confidential information? I'm not making a normative argument in either way here. What I'm asking you to do is just think critically before you make everything open source, whether or not that will benefit or take away opportunities for you and your business. Collaborations that use a sort of non-disclosure agreement are really, really great to making sure that everyone's on the same page. And that can benefit you long term, no matter what third-party developer you might be working with. So again, it's just something into consideration as you're thinking about your innovations, as you're thinking about your business models and the work that you're doing, having just a basic template of a non-disclosure agreement that you are comfortable with, that you can then give to someone you might want to partner with to make sure that your information is confidential. And at the very least, even if it's just a partnership agreement, generally, it's important to have something that you can give to a partner so that they and you are agreed on the terms of your collaboration. And with that, I want to turn it over to a dear friend and colleague of mine, Ana Yolanda. Ana Yolanda is one of these human beings that, for me, just sparkles with joy. And I have such a great time working with her and having worked with her over the past 9 to 12 months, I think it's been, Ana Yolanda. It feels like it's been an age, and I've just had such a great time working with you. Ana Yolanda is leading an organization called Pankeuda, which is an innovative enterprise that's dedicated to providing nutritious, sustainable, and inclusive food products using, now hold on, your mind is about to be blown, using cricket flour. And when I first learned about this, my heart exploded because I immediately realized this is about sustainability as well as inclusion. And I think the nexus of these two fields are just fantastic. Their mission is to create meaningful employment for persons with disabilities, older adults, and single mothers. So there's a wonderful intersectionality approach to what you're doing. And their unique cricket-based products symbolize their commitment to sustainability, health, and community empowerment. Ana Yolanda, welcome. It's so nice to see you.
Me too, Anthony. Thank you for this interview. Thank you, you all, and hi everybody.
First question I have for you is all about using NDAs. So, how have you approached NDAs in your work to protect your intellectual property or to safeguard what's unique about your cricket flour recipes?
Well, first of all, when we invite somebody to work with Pancayuda, as the same that they firm a contract, a laboral contract, they sign to uh, um, confidentiality paper that they they have the information uh, very near of Pancayuda, so they have to be very careful to use them, to use it. And if they go out of Pancayuda, no, in 1 year they cannot use the information that see in Pancayuda, that learn in Pancayuda. So, since we start with this project on 2012, we don't have any trouble about that. Every contract, laboral contract, has the confidentiality paper, and we don't have any trouble with that. And with the brand Pancayuda, as the beginning, we create the brand. We register the brand. Um, um, Here in Mexico is INPI, the intellectual property register. So, and right now we are in the month of register the name of the cricket bar and the formula, the ingredients and things like that, because we think we are going to start any moment to export. So I think it's very important. Yeah, it's money too, but it's very important because it's information, so important information of our company Pancayuda, that we have to protect.
Absolutely. And I just want to applaud you for having such a great vision to be able to say, oh my gosh, this is so important for us that we're going to lean into it. We're going to make sure that this is protected, not only your name, your trademark, but also, the other aspects of your business that if it were to become well known, just like the secret recipe behind Coca-Cola or, Kentucky Fried Chicken, this is intellectual property of a business that if everybody knows what it is, then makes your product almost obsolete. So I want to applaud you on having that business acumen, because not everybody does. A lot of folks who get into this sort of work, we get into it with big hearts because we want, we love what we're doing, we care about what we're doing, and we forget at the end of the day, your financial sustainability is dependent on your ability to protect confidential information in your company. And it may not just be, secret recipes. It may also be if companies out there are working with data from a piece of technology. It may be keeping your customers' private data secret, keeping it confidential, and not allowing just anybody to kind of publish that data. But anyways, that was a bit of a side quest. I want to get back into your work there, Ana Yolanda. Can you give me an experience where clear intellectual property agreements have helped you collaborate with international distributors or partners?
Well, I don't have already agreements with international distributor. As a matter of fact, we are looking for distributors in other countries. We are in that work right now. So we are um, we know the importance of the register. So we are doing now to be sure that it's gonna be a good treat with the international distributor.
Do you think it's essential for you to have these agreements in place when it comes to international partnerships?
Of course, we are doing with cricket flour by this energy bar Mexican cricket flour. So we think we are completely agree that it's so important to register the GE Health. Uh-huh. GE, it's a Mexican autonomy word. Uh-huh. Health. GE Health. So we are preparing that register too as Pancayuda, no? But we are making we are making marketing marketing in all the world. We are sending our products to countries like Canada, US, Colombia, and the brand Pancayuda is completely registered. The brand and the logo, the image. Mhm.
That is absolutely brilliant. And I just want to point out that we covered intellectual property on our previous webinar. And so I want to encourage everybody in the audience to go back and check out that recording. It covers a lot of stuff around intellectual property, which is what Ani Yolanda is talking about right now. That's absolutely brilliant, Ani Yolanda. I want to get into some lessons learned here. So I'm wondering what kind of lessons you've learned about protecting your innovations when it comes to trying to expand your distribution to European and North American markets. Uh, for example, you recently made an effort towards connecting with partners in Finland. Is that right?
We have a distributors, one distributor, a Mexican distributor that works with NUC. I remember NUC, that it's a retail, very big retail that has 2,000 stores all over Europe and Finland. So we are looking to we are looking to interest that NUC retail store, big store, to start selling our products, not only the cricket bar, our cookies, and our alfajor, Mexican alfajor, that is uh, Argentina and Chile and Uruguay too. But well, we did our personal version, Pancayuda. So this is very important because we are moving our imagine Pancayuda and the products, and to protect that information is crucial for Pancayuda and for every enterprise, all
You,
enterprises.
can you tell me what's your next steps in this area? Like, how are you going to approach these sort of international partnerships in the future?
Well, it's a very good question because we need investment to do to do it. We are working the daily sales in Mexico, but for this project, this commercial project, we need investment to produce one pallet, for example, investment to adequate our installation, make an adequations to our installations in Pancayuda, to buy to buy machines, a special machine to help us to do it the cricket bat. So well, we are looking for social investment to do that.
That's
Not only
amazing.
the distributors, not only the distributors, but to the social investment that
Mm,
wants to be with the objectives of Pancayuda, create
mm,
words so the people of the vulnerable groups can live with dignity of their
mm.
work.
That's amazing. And I just want to encourage everybody out there listening, watching this webinar. If you or you know somebody who's into social investment, please reach out to Ana Yolanda at Pancayuda. There's so much great work that they're doing, and we want to make sure that we continue to amplify your work there, Ana Yolanda. Any final
I
words?
I am sure I to that people to that investment, social investment. I tell them that they are going to be very proud to work with Pancayuda.
And Ani Yolanda, I am very proud to get to work with you. You're
Thank you,
truly a
Anton.
remarkable person. And I want to just start wrapping up now because I want to give the audience there some summaries and a little bit of practical takeaways here. So the top three things you need to think about when it comes to non-disclosure agreements, comes to managing your intellectual properties, are number one, have some sort of template agreement in place. Have something at the ready so you at least have something you can use, you can send to partners so that they can sign and you can get some sort of agreement going with each other. Number two, make sure you reflect on what sort of information, what sort of things that you have in your organization or your company that need to be confidential. Really take a microscope to all your operations, all the things you're producing, all the things you're creating, and even just have a list. All these are all the things we have that are confidential. And now you know when you approach a partner what you might be using that could be fall under that list, and you know there needs to be a non-disclosure agreement around that. And then number three, as you're seeking out partners, think about what level of formality you need for your non-disclosure agreements. Do you need something more of the spirit of cooperation agreement like I described before? Or do you need something hard that will be legally binding for each of the partners, a strong non-disclosure agreement? So take all of these things into account as you continue to work on your innovations, as you continue to do your work. And your next actionable step that you can take today is to sit down and make a strategy for you and your coworkers, your team, to make sure that you have this taken care of in the next step of your business. And last but not least, I want to encourage everybody out there in the audience to please check us out at scaling-solutions.zeroproject.org. We're doing amazing work trying to help folks like Ana Yolanda and the other disability innovations fellows that are creating social impact, that are creating change in their local communities, helping them amplify, helping them find new communities to connect to. And this is a joint initiative by ESSEL Foundation, Fundación Descúbreme, ATOAST, GIZ, Enable India, and my company, Inclusive Creation. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to this webinar. It was very exciting, and I hope you reach out to myself or Ana Yolanda if there's anything else we can do to kind of support your work. And have a great day.
Bye-bye.